So today we're continuing in our reading of Jesus' Passion, his Passion Week, and we're in Matthew 26 and Psalm 22. And Psalm 22 is just an incredible prophecy by King David, hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus comes. And he even says word for word some of the things that Jesus is going to say on the cross. And he talks about how Jesus' hands and feet are pierced, all of these things that line up so prophetically with the Messiah and with Jesus' coming. And then in Matthew 26, we see his betrayal and we see him standing before the Sanhedrin, the beginning of the trial. And what I want to look at today in Psalm 22, towards the end, he makes an interesting point. And just a reminder that even as we celebrate his death and his resurrection, Jesus is still king. And in Psalm 22, in verse 27, it says, "All the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of the nations will bow down before you. For kingship belongs to the Lord. He rules over the nations." So even in the midst of him being pierced and even beginning in Psalm 22 with, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We come to the end of the chapter and we're reminded that he is king and that all nations will bow before him. An interesting point in Matthew 26, during the trial, the Sanhedrin is pressing him and they're asking him, did you do all these things and have you blasphemed and all this stuff? And Jesus doesn't say a thing. But they come to this point, and I'll just pick it up in Matthew 26:62. It says, "The high priest then stood up and said to him, 'Don't you have an answer to what these men are testifying against you?' But Jesus kept silent. Then the high priest said to him, 'By the living God, I place you under oath. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God.'" Verse 64, Jesus says, "You have said it. But I tell you, in the future, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." And so one of the only things that Jesus says during his trial is, yes, you've identified me correctly as the Messiah, and I will be coming as king. Again, tying back into Psalm 22, where he reminds us that every knee will bow before him. And even as Jesus is going to the cross, he had not lost sight of who he was as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So as we remember him in his Passion Week this week, remember that he is the risen King